Picture this. You are leaning in for a first kiss right now today. Your heart is doing something ridiculous in your chest. Now rewind. Rewind past your grandparents, past the Romans, past the pyramids, and keep going. Somewhere back there, in a cave, in the dark, was another human leaning toward another face. Did they feel what you just felt? Did they even do what you just did? Here is the strange part. For a long time, scientists genuinely were not sure. Kissing feels like the most natural thing in the world. But natural does not always mean ancient, and ancient does not always mean universal. So we are going to trace this one small human behavior back as far as the evidence allows. And in about 90 seconds, you are going to find out humans were not the only species involved. Let us start with what feels obvious. Today, kissing is everywhere, in movies, in wedding vows, in the goodbye at an airport gate. We assume it has always been this central to human life. That assumption turns out to be only half true. In 2025, a team at Oxford tried something nobody had really attempted before. Instead of digging through old texts, they mapped kissing behavior across the entire primate family tree, chimpanzees, bonobos, and beyond. Their conclusion, published in the journal Evolution and Human Behavior, was staggering. Mouth-to-mouth contact likely began more than 21 million years ago among the early ancestors of today's great apes. That places its origin long before anything we would recognize as human ever existed. Chimpanzees still do it to size up a potential mate. Bonobos still do it too, for arousal and to manage tension within the group. So kissing may not be a human invention at all. We might have simply inherited it, the way we inherited opposable thumbs. Sit with that for a second. Something you did on a date last week might be older than the continents as we know them. Now fast forward toward our own lineage, and the first physical hints start to appear. In Israel, archaeologists have uncovered small clay figurines, faces pressed together, dated to around 9,000 years before our era. On the island of Malta, similar embracing figures turn up, dated to roughly 5,500 years before our era. Are they kissing? Honestly, we cannot be certain. The clay does not come with a caption attached. But here is where the story stops being about clay and starts getting genuinely strange. Because if this behavior really is millions of years old, one obvious question follows. Were modern humans the only ones still doing it once we showed up? In 2017, a microbiologist named Weyrich examined hardened dental plaque, scraped from the teeth of 5 Neanderthal individuals. Buried inside that ancient plaque, her team found a microbe called Methanobrevibacter auralis, the same organism that still lives in your mouth right now. Genetic analysis showed the Neanderthal strain and the human strain split apart somewhere between 112,000 and 143,000 years ago. That timing lines up almost exactly with the period when Homo sapiens and Neanderthals were interbreeding. This is not a microbe you catch from a handshake. It travels through saliva, through close, repeated, mouth-to-mouth contact. Weyrich put it bluntly. In order to swap microorganisms between two people, you have to be kissing, or at the very least, sharing food from mouth to mouth. Somewhere in an Ice Age landscape, a human may have kissed a Neanderthal. Not metaphorically. Genetically documented ancient, cross-species intimacy. Long before writing, before cities, before farming, two separate human species were already this close to each other. It suggests connection was not something civilization taught us. It might be something we carried with us into civilization. If a story like that is new to you, this is exactly the kind of thing this channel digs up every week, so it is worth sticking around for. Because the evidence only gets stranger once humans start writing things down. A Sumerian myth, inscribed on a clay tablet around 2,600 years before our era, describes the goddess Ezenin and the godin. After they come together, the text says plainly, they share a kiss. It is the oldest unambiguous written kiss on record. For decades, though, that was not the story historians told. The textbook answer pointed somewhere else entirely. Ancient Indian scripture, the Vedas, described people touching their lips together around 1,500 years before our era and for a long time that date was treated as the true starting line. Then, in 2023, two researchers decided to actually check the older material more closely. Troels Pank Arbøll, an expert in ancient Mesopotamian script, teamed up with biologist Sophie Lund Rasmussen. Publishing in the journal Science, they pulled kissing references out of thousands of surviving Mesopotamian clay tablets. What they found pushed the confirmed written record back by a full 1,000 years, landing it firmly in ancient Iraq and Syria. They also traced references to kissing across ancient Egyptian, Akkadian, and Ebelite writing, languages spread across the wider Middle East. That detail matters more than it sounds. Kissing was not invented once, then exported, like a trend spreading from one trend-setting culture. It seems to have shown up independently, in multiple societies, over multiple centuries, all on its own. By the time we reach ancient Rome, the behavior had already split into different categories, each with its own name and its own rules. A friendly kiss on the cheek was one thing. A passionate kiss between lovers was something else entirely, with its own separate word. Even Charles Darwin took an interest in the subject, describing what he called kissing-like behaviors in his 1872 book on human and animal emotion. He pointed to nose rubbing and gentle arm patting as possible earlier versions of the very same impulse. There is a darker layer hiding underneath all of this affection, one researchers have only recently started taking seriously. Ancient human remains have yielded the genomes of saliva-transmitted pathogens, meaning disease has likely ridden alongside affection for a very long time. Some scientists once floated the idea that a single kissing epidemic spread the herpes simplex virus across ancient populations all at once. But Arbøll's research suggests otherwise. Kissing was already common in too many separate cultures for one sudden outbreak to explain it. Intimacy, in other words, was not the exception carrying disease along with it occasionally. It was the constant, quiet backdrop of ancient life. Which leads to the bigger idea sitting underneath all of this evidence. Kissing might not be a romantic custom that humans cleverly invented. It might be ancient biological software inherited, then repurposed. One evolutionary psychologist at the University of Warwick, Adriano Lamira, traces it back even further to primate grooming. In many primates, a grooming session often ends with the mouth nibbling debris out of another animal's fur. Over millions of years, that closing gesture may have drifted from hygiene into affection and eventually into desire. There is also a gentler theory tied to infancy. Human infants respond instinctively to lip contact, associating it with comfort, warmth, and safety. Before baby food existed, some parents fed infants mouth to mouth, a practice historians call kiss feeding. So a behavior tied to survival, to feeding a helpless newborn, may have quietly evolved into a behavior tied to romance. That is the emotional through line. The same gesture stretched across millions of years, doing three completely different jobs. Now here is the twist that flips almost everything you have just heard. Despite roots this deep, romantic kissing is not something every human culture actually practices. In 2015, anthropologist William Jankowiak led a landmark cross-cultural study, and the results surprised even him. His team combed through records covering 168 distinct cultures, searching for evidence of romantic, lip-to-lip kissing. The result, published in the journal American Anthropologist, appended a very common assumption. Only 46% of those cultures showed clear evidence of romantic kissing. 54% showed none at all. Among the Mahinika people of the Amazon, no ethnographer ever recorded it happening. The same was true across much of sub-Saharan Africa and New Guinea. In the Trobriand Islands, near Papua New Guinea, couples expressed desire by nibbling on each other's eyelashes instead. Among some Inuit communities, nose rubbing carried the same emotional weight that a kiss carries for us, and by some accounts, it worked just fine. So if you grew up thinking every culture on Earth kisses the way you do, you are working off a very Western assumption. The researchers found something else too, a pattern connecting kissing to social complexity itself. The more layered and class-stratified a society becomes, the more likely romantic kissing appears within it. Which means the version of kissing you know might be less a universal human instinct and more a cultural habit, sharpened by the world you happen to grow up in. So which is it? Ancient biology, written into us over 21 million years, or a custom, taught generation to generation, in certain places and not others? Based on everything researchers have uncovered so far, the honest answer is both. The capacity was almost certainly there long before humans existed, inherited from ancestors we shared with chimpanzees and bonobos. But whether a society actually reaches for that capacity, whether it becomes a wedding tradition, a private greeting, or nothing at all, that part is culture, layered on top of biology. It is worth remembering, next time you watch two people kiss in a film, that scene is not simply human nature playing out unfiltered. It is millions of years of primate history, a handful of Bronze Age clay tablets, quite possibly a Neanderthal, and one specific culture's decision to call this romantic, all pressed into a single second. Ancient humans almost certainly kissed. Some populations kissed constantly, others barely at all, and a few may have kissed a species that no longer exists. The next time your lips meet someone else's, you are not doing something new. You are doing something so old, it predates humanity itself.